Okay, so we are live. Welcome to Vantage Point Conversations. Welcome to my audience and welcome to my guests. So, I do not introduce my guest, but I'm going to say your first name, Ademola. Ademola.
That's right.
Is that right?
Ademola, yeah,
Right, okay.
that's right, yeah.
Okay. I don't introduce my guests. Opening monologue always stays the same. I don't think I would do a very good job. It's not me being lazy. So take as long as you want, as little time as you want, any context, anything that you think you would like people to know about you, highs, lows, anywhere in between. And then we just jump in and have a good conversation from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I won't tell too long of a story because if you get me going, I'll start from the day I was born. But yeah, my name's Ademola Adelakun. I'm the CEO of A2 Media, and we are a 10-person content strategy and video editing agency. And the reason why I started this company is because I noticed that a lot of companies don't know where to start with video, and they hire freelancers and agencies that produce video content for them, but then they don't know what to do with it. So for me, I was like, you know what? I think we need to be more full service in our approach, and we need to tell companies how to use our content and then what to make, sort of thing. So we do everything from planning, strategy, like scripting, and then also video editing. And it's been fun for the last 3 years. So that's a little bit about me.
Wow. Okay. So we're going to dig into that side of your world. But before we really get started, I was reflecting on our conversation. So, people that watch this before know that I have maybe just like a 30-minute conversation before going live. So a week or however long before, just to get to know you, and just see if, agree the topics, etc. Now, actually, we took a little while to get through to actually having that conversation, because I remember we were having a conversation on LinkedIn, and what struck me was your personality that came across, because you were going on holiday or something like that, and you basically said, "Yeah, I'm not going to be answering my messages for, I don't know if it was the Christmas period or something." And you said, "My partner's not going to be very happy with me." And do you know what? That really stuck with me, because it was so genuine and so human that I was like, this guy's cool. Because it wasn't like, oh yeah, just trying to hide things or just say, yeah, I'm busy. You were genuine with your time. And you said, yeah, I'm going on holiday. That's not going to be a great time if I take my work with me. And I absolutely loved that. And so that's before we'd even spoken.
Thank you.
And I thought that was amazing. Then the next thing, you never know on LinkedIn, because you see all these profile pictures and you kind of see stuff, and you don't really get to see anyone. And then when you have this assumption, and I think one of your titles was disruptive. Do you have disruptive or something in your title? I can't remember. I think the conversation was, I like to be a bit disruptive or something, or make fun or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was expecting this crazy person to be shouting at me as soon as they got on the conversation, and I was like, no. And you came across just so cool, calm, and really thoughtful, but just really happy. And I was like, I'd made such a wrong connection in my brain. I was like, but have you always been that way? Are you always calm like that?
I appreciate that question. I would say 90% of the time, yeah. I feel like when I'm in content creation mode, that's when I kind of become a little bit off the rocker, like running around, just because I love being silly as well. I think being silly is so important, right? But on the calm side of things, I would say mostly maybe after university, after I got all of the silliness and craziness out of me. So to answer this in a long-winded way, I'm sure my parents are probably tuning in as well, but they were quite strict when I was younger. So I feel when I went to school and I was on my own for the first time, that's when I was like, we got to go out, we got to have fun. And then I got it all out of my system. And then I went right back to being calm again. So it's just, I don't know. I feel my life is kind of designed that way in a strange way. Like all the music I listen to is like lo-fi or like just like slow and like nice sort of thing. And I find that people, maybe, I don't know if this is more reactive than anything or if it's just natural, but when I approach people like this, and I feel like I've done it as long as I can remember, people are much more receptive. They open up and we have some great conversations. So I think this has become my default, I would say.
Nice. And are you the same outside of sort of work time?
Yeah, no, I make sure I'm 100% the same person at work as well. It's funny you asked that question. That's one of the reasons why I left corporate, because I found that I wasn't being myself, and I wanted to be in an environment where my clients and the people that I work with would accept me for who I am. So it's really important for me to be my full self in every facet, so that when I do show up online, for example, people have a consistent experience with me in person and online. I just think that's like the gold standard of showing up on social media. If you can be consistent in both places, then I mean, it feels like less work, and also
Yeah.
it's just better for everyone.
Yeah. It's strange because I had a similar conversation with someone. They said basically I am exactly the same on the live as you would meet me in person, and I was like, yeah, because I'm not a performer in any stretch of the imagination,
Mm,
and there's a lot of energy and thought that needs to go into performing, and then to have this sort of mask to have a conversation with a mask on, it feels very
mm,
strange to me, and I think that would be very energy draining for me just to show up and just be this whoa, sort of
yeah,
really outgoing guy, and for me, it was just kind of a natural evolution into that. I'm just going to show up as I am. And that seems to find the right audience. I think it's also a very good filter because I know that I'm not for everyone, and that's absolutely okay. But um, people have the option to switch off or stay on. And if they
mm,
decide to switch off, perfect, great. So I know that I'm left with the people that want to stay. And
yeah,
that's a lot of the work done already, right? So you're only talking to the people that kind of seem to resonate, or there's something that lands with them. And I think that's for me, it's worked very well so far.
absolutely. I mean, it's hard to picture you not being for everyone. You're such a great person, but I totally get that. It's like I don't really see a point in showing up differently online, because if you're someone that is not happy with themselves, and maybe you're not finding the people, your tribe that you want, and then you show up differently online, and then people start to meet you after you've shown up differently online, they will also be disappointed that you're not the same person, right? So you might as
Mhm.
well be yourself and be reaching a bigger audience as yourself, so that you can find people that are more like you. That's just the way that I see it as well. So I think, yeah, if you're not for everyone, um, it's better to stick to being yourself than to not be for everyone in two different ways.
Yeah,
And then yeah, it's I don't know, like I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah, it
something I
does.
think about quite a bit.
I watch quite a lot of YouTube videos, and for good and bad. Like, I wasted quite a bit of time. But I've seen, I'm sure you're more aware of this, but I see a lot of content creators. They kind of go through this cycle of being known for like a niche or something like that. So I watch a lot of tech videos. So let's say there's a guy talking about exclusively about Apple,
Mm,
and they get known for that, and they kind of get pushed into that, and then they do that for about a year or two, and they become successful, they get ratings that they monetize, etc., but they kind of burn out, and
mm,
that there's no light behind the eyes. They're talking about the latest tech that's coming out, but they've done the same video about 6 times over the month, just in slightly different angles. It's like, yeah, look what product's going to be released, and
mm,
it's not. I'm just giving the example of one, but then a lot of them kind of they lose their soul into it because they're just doing it. They have to almost scrape some sort of performance out of that, and it's not really who they are.
yeah,
And I think it's good while it's okay, but it doesn't last forever. Whereas I think I questioned when I started doing this, could I keep doing it? And so I said I would do it for a year just as a test, see what works, what doesn't. Um, and then I can't think of a day that I'm going to get bored about it. I get to meet people like you. I get it to ask questions. So I'm like, this feels like the greatest thing in the world. Like, and this doesn't feel like a job. So,
mm,
and I don't come here and go, okay, I've got to put this mask on and I've got to perform. I
mm,
generally get to show up as me. I get to ask questions, which I'm super curious anyway.
right.
Uh, that's really cool, and I feel very privileged to be able to do that, and it works well. And I think I can understand why it's easy to get caught in the other trap but I'd
Mm.
much rather know that I did it for me and do it in my way
Mm.
rather than sort of try and perform and then burn out. Even if it's after a year or two, if that makes sense.
No, 100%. And I think the way in which you've done it is so beautiful because you bring so much of yourself and your personality into it. And like we were touching on before, like you're finding your tribe, you're finding the people that are into it as well. And you have people saying like, "Hey, can I be on your live?" Which is an incredible thing because you're like, I'm just talking to people and we have some great conversations. And, we don't even know where it's going to go, but we know that it's going to be something great. And a lot of people don't have that luxury because the people that they're looking at are, people that are in the public eye that are not happy themselves, but they've, like you said, got themselves caught in a niche. And because everyone knows them for that, and they continue to see the numbers and the money and the dollars come in for that thing that they've established, because they were also looking at someone else ahead of them, it just becomes this vicious cycle where people believe, okay, well, this is the thing that goes viral right now, so I need to be into this thing, or like this is the thing that people have told me to do, so I need to go into this thing. And then once you're pigeonholed there, you kind of feel the passion that you had for that thing, maybe you started with it, has become work, and you're like, well, I don't like this thing anymore. And the thing that a lot of YouTubers do is they create a second channel where they can be more themselves, so they can balance that work with just like fun, right? So, I mean, everyone knows Mr. Beast. He has a bunch of different channels. I think that guy overworks. So, I mean, he's not the best example, but for him, he has his main channel where he has these massive productions, and he always talks about how burnt out he is and exhausted and how he wants to stop, but he can't. But then he has these other channels where you can see that he's being more himself and he has this outlet with his friends. And I'm like, yeah, well, you kind of need that, right? When you're known for something and you're one dimensional online, it's inevitable. Burnout is inevitable, right?
Yeah, yeah. That idea of trends, I actually wanted to ask you about it because I guess do you see a lot of trends in video? Excuse me.
Okay.
Do you see a lot of trends in like and do people follow? So the reason I asked this because I was thinking I've never been someone that stood out. I've never gone against the crowd. I've always gone with it. I've just been that good boy that followed all the rules.
Hmm.
Yet when I started this, I didn't know what I was doing, but it appeared that I was doing everything that everyone else, the opposite of what everyone else was doing, and to be honest, I felt a bit like, yeah, for the first time in my
Hmm.
life, I'm doing something different. But it can also be a bit scary because everyone's going this way, and you're like, ah, and then people giving advice pointing to here.
Right.
But I didn't know we consume so much, so and algorithms show us a lot of the same thing that we were interested in. So you kind of you go, oh, that way is the right way,
Mm.
and that's what they show you more of. But is there trends in video? Do things sort of come in and out of season like fashion? How do you see it?
Oh yeah, it's crazy because I find um, everyone's looking at the same people, right? Like I mentioned, Mr. Beast. I mentioned Duolingo is another one. Liquid Death, right? People follow the big players in the space, and they're like, okay, the formula to a great video is you do this, and then you do this, and they do these breakdowns of these massive people that didn't start that way, and I find that's the disconnect, right? Because the people that we see as like um, the gold standard of content right now, often when you look back at their previous content, they started doing something else that helped them build their audience, and now they can get away with doing like other things still within that niche, but like on a grander scale, and they can get away with more because they have a bigger audience. So what happens in video is when you start seeing trends going viral on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, you're like, okay, so in the first 2 seconds, they had this graphic and then they had this sound and all these things, and people start copying all of that. And what starts to happen is when there's too much of that, then people start going the opposite way, and they look like geniuses because it's like, well, we know people are going to get tired of this trend, so if we do the opposite of that, then eventually the pendulum will swing back this way, right? And the reason I mention that is because we're going to see that with AI video. So everyone is obsessed with generated video content, the fact that there are AI tools out there that you can like prompt and then they'll spit out a video. Not great right now, by the way, but it will get better. But in the same way that when ads were introduced to social media, The second people see that something is AI generated in a year's time from now, they're going to go, ugh, I just want to see something real, or ugh, I'm just going to disconnect because I'm tired of all this AI generated slop, no matter how good it gets, right? So, all that to say, I feel like there are trends in video, and the secret to making great content that is evergreen is doing the opposite almost always. It won't pay off in the short term, but there'll be people that will hail you as a genius later on because they're like, oh, how did you see this coming? And you're like, well, I just did the opposite of what everyone else is doing because I knew people would get tired of that. So that's typically what I tell people to focus on, like being true to yourself and also not chasing trends, because you'll burn out doing that, and people will burn out in your content doing that.
Yeah. Um, how long do trends tend to last? Is it like 6 months, 3 months? Could you
Oh,
put a time limit on it? Is it
these days, couple weeks, right?
oh,
Like
really?
it's crazy. Yeah. So you'll see something that if you don't jump on immediately, like if you have a big corporate team that you have to go through several layers of like legal designers, all these people, don't even bother because by the time you try and catch the wave, it's gone. Um, Especially on TikTok. I think LinkedIn is a bit different because LinkedIn tends to adopt everything very slowly. But honestly, everyone's also on other social media platforms, so there's a limited amount of time that things will run for on LinkedIn too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking when you were saying about following the trend and doing something opposite. When I first started, so I stream to Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn, but most of the time, well, 100% of the time, the connections I make, like with you, is through LinkedIn.
Mm.
And I didn't really understand LinkedIn, and there's a ton of people that are going to sell you how to beat the algorithm. And hands up, I signed up for it all. I kind of, yeah, you create these pods, you're going to put content out there, etc. And then after a while, I realized it's very energy draining to try and beat something. And I think we talked about this in our conversation before. And I think the goal was, oh yeah, I want to go viral. I want to be an instant overnight success.
Mm.
And then I sort of went, what would I do with that? I've got no idea. Like, because I've got no product or service to sell. But I think you feel that you win the game if you become viral.
Mm.
And I don't know why we've got that. I don't, maybe you can explain it a bit more. But what I realized out of all of that is that I could just put the energy in being myself,
Mm.
not writing content to try and trick or to beat the algorithm. I'm just going to do my stuff and try and be consistent and share who I am. And this comes back to about being myself. My finding my voice and finding your own voice is not always easy, takes time. And I came from the corporate world, whereas you don't really feel that you have your own voice because you have to check in with the communications department if you're okay to post something.
Mm.
So, and I still struggle with that. Like there's some invisible puppet master behind me, sort of saying, "Don't post that." Um, but I realized that. So I don't do like I do show up on LinkedIn. I do when I see stuff in my feed that I like, then I'll comment. If I don't, no, I just let it go because I realized that I was putting a lot of effort commenting on other people's posts, almost sort of saying,
Mm.
look at me. And I was like, why don't I put that energy into something more productive?
Yeah.
Just put some stuff out there. And that means absolutely I won't go viral. That
Mm.
means that it will be a slow burning thing, but at least it's manageable in terms of energy and enthusiasm. And then I, I, I think that was maybe 6 months into it. So it's not like I had this miraculous moment.
Mm.
I would much rather do that longer term than beat any algorithm, which people are selling you a course to master it. And like you said, maybe a couple of days later it's changed anyway. So you can never get in front of it, right?
Yeah, and I think people don't understand that often. People don't know who you are after you go viral if you don't have brand recognition. They just know what you did, right? So
Mm.
we're getting validation on a scale that we've never seen before, and a lot of people think, okay, well, if I have this company that's never been on social before and we have one viral hit, then everything will change for us. And it's often not the case, because people will be like, oh, did you see that company with that person who did this thing? And it's like, on the data shows that this person watched from start to finish 5 times, but they still have no idea who you are or what you do. So you can present that to your board of directors, or you can present that to your C-suite, and they'll go, wow, that's great. Is the money coming now? And often the answer is no, right? So virality is just like a moment in time where people are happy and they have this massive dopamine hit because they're like, everybody saw this. But in terms of conversion and like lasting impact, it often is not there. So what I tell people is that, the thing that changed my mind was this case study about this small agency somewhere in the States. My geography is bad, but they committed to making YouTube content that was hyper targeted towards the people that would actually help. And their videos were getting like 100 to 500 views, that sort of thing, in that range, over a couple of months. And as they committed to this, 2, 3 months in, they were having record months. And people were like, how is this possible? You're not going viral all the time. And the reason was, they were like, we're just going to dial in to who can benefit from this the most, and make those people our, 1,000 loyal fans, if you want to use that terminology.
Mhm.
And it's working for them. So they just continue to make content that is specific for this audience, and makes that audience member go, oh, they read my mind this week, or how did they know that I wanted to see this? And it builds that trust with them, and they want to transact with them at that point. On the virality side of things, it does benefit companies that are already established, but they've done the work to have the brand recognition. And I think that's the piece that so many companies miss. It's like, if you go viral and you have no brand recognition, it does nothing. If you go viral and you have brand recognition, it sometimes does something, but it's still not as good as making content for a hyper personalized audience. That's my take.
I, I I think this is such an interesting part because we have this weird obsession with numbers, and I
Mhm.
know data tells a story, but oftentimes it's only part of a story. I feel, and it depends what sort of data you're looking at. So you go, so when we are, because I used to work in corporate, you go, oh, I'm looking at this data,
Mhm.
but this data is just a subset of a massive amount of data, and but we're looking at that, and everything looks great in there, but you, in context of everything else, no, it doesn't make sense. No, I see that as data when we can look at a spreadsheet, but I see it in everything that we do. Like, you know, is if you try to put data over everything that we do in our day-to-day lives, where we're spending our times, what we're doing, etc.
Right.
If you just focus on one meeting that you're in and what you're
Mhm.
saying, you go, oh, yeah, great. But in the context of your whole day, is that worth your time? Does
Mhm.
it make sense? Is it helping you get to where you want to go? But we don't look at things like that. We just focus on that thing, and I, I often think we need to zoom out a little bit. And
Yeah.
I love the way that you're thinking because you seem to take information from different sources. Is that something you strategically do, or you've always been like that? How did you get to do that?
Absolutely. I feel like in every situation, I don't know if I'm going to explain this properly, but have you seen that illustration? And I probably am jumbling it in my mind right now because I'm trying to recall it. But when you're like way too close to something and you have to guess what it is, right?
Oh,
I think it's like an elephant, and they're like, "Oh, it's this or it's that." I see everything like that when I'm looking at an isolated piece of information. I'm like, "Well, what informed that?" And I think the reason I think that way is because um, with video, attribution is really hard, right? So there's no way for me to tell that you watched something on TV and then 2 months later decided, actually, I do want to buy this thing, this hot chocolate from Nestle, right? Like, how am I supposed to tell that story? Because, uh, and I think that's why, for me, I'm always looking at things like, okay, what was the journey that this person had to go on for them to finally decide to reach out to us, right? And it informs everything that I do. Like, as you were talking, I was thinking to myself, yeah, if you look at data that way, for me, if you look at the fact that, let's say, really bad example, but you look at how long I spend in my house, and you see the data. Oh, on average, he's spending like 9 hours a day in his house, right? The conclusion may be maybe he's bedridden, or maybe he's going through has some mental health issues, that sort of thing. When the reality is, I'm working and I'm happy. I'm really happy. But you can't tell that story unless you have context for other things. You have to know that I'm a business owner. You have to know that one of my hobbies is work. Like, all of those things have to come together for the data to tell a story. So Long-winded way of saying isolated data is not great. If you can find a story to tell about that data and you have enough pieces of information to make an educated guess, that's usually when you get the best results. But the other thing that we have to accept as human beings is that we will never have all the data that we need. We always are guessing in most cases.
Yeah, you don't have some mystical answer. You don't.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I get it, and I think some people like to sell the idea that they know everything, and it's not. Yeah,
yeah. I resent that. Like a lot of our clients that we work with, they're like, they'll ask me a question from time to time, like, "Oh, how did this happen?" or "How can we do this?" And I'll be like, a lot of testing. We'll get there. I can promise you that I will test until my fingers bleed, but there are some things that I just don't have answers for. And if I try to convince you otherwise, then I feel like I'd be doing you a disservice. But anyone that tells you that they can, that with 100% certainty, they can solve X, Y, or Z problem is lying to you. So please be cautious, right? Um, I don't know. I find operating with like a no BS sort of
yeah.
rule has been life changing for me.
It was that a switch because as you were talking, I was like, "Wow, you're honest." Because uh, a lot of people, I've come across people they like to tell a story that shapes everything in a positive way,
Mm,
especially when you come from a corporate environment. It's almost because there's a sale behind it. It's almost like, oh, we're gonna just, especially if you're. So I used to when I used to work in banks, we used to have certain, a new software come in, and you'd get like the salesperson come in,
mm.
and they would give you this very molded thing, so it looks exactly like the thing that you want, and then you'd speak to the developers or whoever came in afterwards. They're like, we can't do that, like we and. But the way that you just described that was just so honest and genuine, and I was like, I would so do business with you
No,
because
thank you.
no, because you're not. It's not about the BS. It's just yeah. This is the reality. You're giving all of the facts and saying, look, I will work really hard. I can do all of this stuff. This
Mm.
stuff is an unknown. If someone's selling you that, then they're not being truthful. So what
Mm.
is that? Have you always been that way, or you've molded that? That's how you started your company, and you said you wanted to work with those sort of values. What was that for you?
No, 100%. I think, um, when did that start? I'm curious. According to my mom, I've always been like this. Like, always question things, always been radically honest. I think for me, I worked in tech for about 8 years. So I worked at, places like Shopify, a firm like the buy now, pay later company. It's like a Klarna
Mhm.
competitor, that sort of thing. And then like Vidyard and a couple of other companies. And I noticed that a lot of these companies would put their faith and trust in consultants and agencies that would sell them this dream that, as I, sort of matured in the corporate world, I would look at some of the results that had happened for these companies that had put their faith and trust in these companies. And I'd be like, you're telling me you spent 100 grand in a month or 500 grand over the course of a year and you got no results from it. And they're like, yeah, I mean, they told us that they could do X, Y, and Z, that they'd run this for us, and they did it. And literally zero leads came from X effort. And I'm like, that is insane to me. And there are so many, like, this is why the narrative out there is that agencies cannot be trusted, because I don't know if you hear that much, but um, so many people out there are hesitant to work with agencies because they feel like they're being lied to, right? So for me, I was like, I'm not going to lie to people because A, it means I have to work harder to maintain the lie and get the result that I said that I was going to get, even though I knew it wasn't possible. And B, I don't think it's fair to a company to, lie to their face and also waste their time. So even if someone, like these days, when someone comes to me and I'm not 100% confident that I would be a better guesser than them, because, all of this is guessing, then I'll tell them like, hey, I think you need to go to this person or that person, or you need to do these things or have these things in place before you work with someone like us. Um, and early days, it was hard to do that because when you first start a company, the first thing on your mind is, I need money now, like fast, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of those companies came back and they said, hey, like we tried X, Y, and Z. We have these things in place now. Your advice really helped. Is there any way we can work together? And to me, that was just validation that being honest, even when it's tough, yields results. Like even the companies that didn't come back, they would send people our way, and I'd be like, "How did you hear about us?" And they'd be like, "Oh, this person sent us," and I'd be like, "Whoa, that's crazy, right?" Um, but there's two sides of the coin too. Like you have to be radically honest in that sense, and also when clients are being difficult for no reason, right? So for me, I prefer to have face-to-face conversations, and I bring this up because something comes to mind where a client was being really difficult, and we were um, doing our best to accommodate because they were referred to us by someone that we really like, and you know, about hopefully they're not watching, but if they do, it's okay. We've already addressed it. About 30 minutes before launch, they were asking for more changes that just weren't necessary to a project that was going out soon. Um, and I just said, hey, I have to be honest, the things you're asking for, what will they move the needle on? Or is it just for you to feel good about it? Because if it's for you to feel good about it, you hired us to be the experts. And I feel you need to go this way. And if we make any changes right now in the last 30 minutes, we're bound to do more harm than good. And their response was, "Oh, okay, fair. Actually, I hadn't thought of it that way." And my feeling in that moment was, we've been dealing with this back and forth for like a week where I've tried to be accommodating. I haven't said anything, and normally I would if it wasn't someone that had referred that person to us. But in this case, I was like, why did I not say this sooner? And it was a reminder that like being radically honest, what in difficult situations always serves you better earlier than later, right? So I mean, that's a whole story, but I just wanted to kind of drive the point home that it's a core sort of value for our company, and I think it's easier to operate this way because I very much see this as a lifestyle business. Like I'm not trying to scale to the moon. This is business number 14 for me. And if you'd asked me 3 businesses ago, I'd say, yeah, I want like this massive corporation where, I'm the CEO, I'm doing all these things. But the reality is I just want time with my family, my friends. And this business, the way that I'm running it now and the people that I have allows me to live that way. And I'll continue to do whatever I can to maintain that culture and sort of, run it this way, you know? So.
Yeah. Do you I'm wondering if that's morals, values, ethics, or a combination of all of those. How do you see it?
Hmm. I would say maybe, yeah, morals and values. Yeah, all three, all three. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think it's important to be a good human being. I'm very woo woo, so I'm very much always thinking about karma and doing the right thing, but also setting boundaries because I feel like there are a lot of people that do the right thing and don't set boundaries, and they land in the same situation quite often for that reason. Um, but yeah, I think it's important to bring that in because reputation is everything. A lot of people who are looking to grow fast or, get rich quick, they don't think about reputation. So they're willing to do sleazy deals or burn people because they don't think about the fact that, okay, sure, you acquire all this wealth in a short time, but who do you share it with? Who do you spend time with? Because you've burned all the bridges, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, that's very much how I look at just life and business in general.
So I think you said there's 10 people in your company. Is that right? Did
Yeah,
I?
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's
So
right.
when you hire people, do you look for the same sort of values, morals, or do you explain who you are and how you work? How does that work?
I just ask them questions, and I can tell within 5 minutes if someone is right. And I think maybe that's just because I meet so many people similar to you. So a goal of mine when I first went to school was meet 5 new people a week, and I feel like subconsciously I just maintained that. So my radar for if someone is my person is a lot more refined. Um, but in the people that I've hired, they immediately add value. And I know that's so cliche to say, but the first person I hired, he was asking me questions that I had no idea about. Like I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing, or like, how do you think about this? And I'm like, oh wow, okay, I need to hire you immediately. The youngest person at our company, the main reason I hired him is because even though he was straight out of school, he's still with us, which I'm really happy about. So Jude, if you're listening, great work. The reason I hired him is because even though he had no work experience, he was not afraid to ask difficult questions, and questions that challenged me. And I was like, okay, you're someone that's going to progress this company and help, even when I'm not around. So one of the reasons why you mentioned that when you messaged me initially that I said I was on vacation. So I was gone for a month and a half, and I had no worries because I know I have the right people in place, people that you know have as much investment as I do in the business. And I think it's really important to find that. And the way that you weed people out is just like examining how they think. If they ask questions, if one of my favorite questions to ask, for example, is, say you could never leave this business, how would you grow it? The person that goes, that wouldn't happen. So, I mean, yeah, but maybe I do this, I'm like, okay, immediately, no. But if someone takes a second to think about it and says, okay, well, these are the things that I would do, even if their answers are not correct, the fact that they are able to live in that hypothetical and treat it as their own is a big signal for me. So, I mean, that's a lot packed into one answer, but yeah.
Oh, I really like it. It's a very smart, forward-thinking way of doing things, and I think your questions, or that question at least, answers a lot. It shows a lot about that person and how they see things. And I I don't want to make this a corporate world bashing session, but
I'm all for it if you want to.
maybe it's a therapy session, get it all out. I mean, I think in the corporate world, just the world I existed in, you weren't really, if I say incentivized, and when I say incentivized, it, that always sort of brings up connotations of money. Incentivized to ask questions. You were there was this unspoken thing to, just follow along. And a lot of my work was in banks, and banks have historically done stuff, and there's so much legacy thing that there's very old ways of thinking. And I know there's regulations, I get all of this, and and things are hard and slow to move sometimes. But there was no innovation. There was no. It's almost like, right, you come in and you just join this grey ship that's just going through the seas, and I think that gets knocked out of people very quickly. And I find it very sad, because I worked with some very intelligent, creative people, and when you say creative, you don't really think about banks. You think it's very sort of almost stable, rigid. But I think that it's really sad that they aren't allowed to bring their creativity. They don't ask questions, and if you ask questions, the common thing, it's even happened to me. I'm not, I did a job, and then someone came in and said, "Well, why'd you do that?" And I go, "Well, that's just the way it's done." You go, "Oh," like you just get so ingrained in what you're doing that I always give this example. You run a report on a daily basis and send it out, and then someone comes up, "Why you send that report out?" "Oh, because that's the way it's always done." You realize that report was created for a client that existed 10 years ago, left, and no one's even receiving it anymore. It's just like, how much time, effort, and energy is wasted. And I believe that exists in so much of the work that goes on.
Yeah.
But also, what happens is you kind of get this mindset of just thinking almost the same way. You kind of like, you go, "Oh, well, I'm asking great questions," but you're not. You're just asking the same sort of question that looks a bit different, but it's not the big question of saying, how can we really change this? Come up with like a not fresh way, not just for change sake, which is often what I found is like managers come in and go, "No, I don't like the way you're doing it. We need to do this so I can make my impact and I get my big bonus at the end," and it doesn't land. But I think, having intentional, deep conversations with everybody's input, not just like a manager saying, "Yes, I like that." No, it's about that collaboration of understanding, asking the people that know what's going on. Can we test this? Can we experiment? Try new things. If it works, great. If it doesn't, let's tweak it. Let's find a way. And I think because of that world, it's so slow to move. And I start to feel that there are people that want to come out of that world and want to maybe start their own business, which I don't always think that everyone should start their own business. I still don't know that I should be starting this business. I'm not quite sure. But I think I think somewhere in the world there exists, in my mind, there's this hybrid where you will get these people that don't want to go and keep in the grey system. They want to go into this partnership where creativity and energy and everything can work together and to create something very well without necessarily too much hierarchy, and to have a good balance in their life. And so that's just my that's my therapy session out the way.
No,
But
no. I mean, it's like you're allowed to ask questions within this box. If you go outside of the box, then those questions are not allowed. This is the way that we do things. Like I've been there, and it sucks because if you're not innovating, like that's where companies start to die, right? It may take a long time, but I mean, I don't even know. I don't even know why companies are resistant to that or people are resistant to that. I think in a lot of cases, it's just easy. So it's easy to do things the way that they've always been done, and change brings about a lot of discomfort. So sometimes people are just like, well, that'll be a lot of paperwork. So why would we do it that way when we can do it this way and I can go home at 5?
yeah,
That sort of
yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I think your point of, those companies will die, but they're so big sometimes that
Mm,
it takes them a long time to die. They just don't realize that they died, but
yeah,
it's just,
right.
they're going along very slowly. And
Yeah.
yeah, I just, I think there's a lot of egos attached to decisions as well. People
Mm,
don't want the young person to come in and sort of disrupt things because then they didn't think about it. But in
mm,
this world of tech changing all the time, I think everything should be, well, it doesn't have to be, but in my world, more of a collaboration.
mm,
Understand what skills people are bringing. Sort of allow them to do that, kind of get out their way and allow them to do it. If you've hired the right person, I think obviously that's my uh, you know prerequisite. If you've hired the right person, why are you then going to go? Yeah, we've hired you for all these amazing skills.
mm.
Yeah, now we're going to stick you in this grey box and
Yeah, yeah,
just bounce around in there for a bit, and it just
right.
seems a bit silly, but yeah.
Yeah, with people, with companies, sometimes you see companies acquire another one because they do this one thing really well. And then
Mm.
the second they're integrated into that bigger company's culture, it's like, cool, you don't do that thing anymore. You do it this
Yeah,
way. And it's like, well, why did you acquire us? And it's because you're a fly, like you're a fly and you're bothering us, sort of thing.
yeah.
We want to continue doing things this way. And if there are companies that think differently, then we have to adhere to those standards. So we might as well just acquire you so you shut up. you know
Oh, nice.
yeah. So
I heard this story the other day. It was uh it was on the How I Built This. Do you know the podcast?
yeah, I
Uh,
do.
And it was a company that was, I think, bought by Amazon. I think it was Amazon, and I don't know. I can't even remember what the company was, but basically they thought they were going to fit under the Amazon umbrella, and they made this deal that said, no, you can just carry on what you're doing exactly as you're doing it. You have your own board or whatever, directors, etc. Keep it as it is. We just own you, and that's it. Just go and do it. And it was like, oh, quite refreshing. That's quite nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's cool. You wouldn't
yeah.
expect that.
No. Um, I was thinking about what you just said in terms of building your own company. And did you say it's business number 14?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I'm wondering what changed where you said you wanted to be the head of this corporation,
Mm,
and now you've kind of thought about, okay, well, no, you kind of want that, I would say, balance, that lifestyle design where you go, okay, you're working from your home, you've got something that really works for you. And I genuinely believe that you're very happy. Like I said to you when we first met before we actually clicked go live, there was a smile, and that's such a great feeling. I'm just wondering what happened, what the transition between business 13 and business 14 to make you change your mind. And why
mm,
I ask that is because oftentimes we have, certainly for me, I had these goals in my mind that weren't my own goals. I set these unrealistic things, and it's almost the equivalent of going viral for some reason. And I don't want to go viral, but I was
mm.
interested, what was that transition? Was it a thing in between 13 and 14 for you?
Great question. I think there's a few things, but there's two that come to mind. Number one, when I was working at Shopify, I got the opportunity to work with some cool brands like Marvel and like Lindt Chocolate, which is like a Canadian chocolate company, just for those listening. Um, and you know, I would talk to these business owners on like a bi-weekly, monthly basis, right? And there was one company that was about a 4 hour drive from where I live. So, him and I were like, oh, we're both in Canada. We don't get a lot of Canadian merchants. And we would hop on the phone and we would just chat about life, similar to what we're doing right now. And at some point, he was like, dude, you gotta come visit in Montreal sometime. And I said, you know what, I will do that. And we met up, and he was just this guy that um, just doesn't take things too seriously. When I compare him to all of the other merchants that I had, they were all like, "Hey, we have to hit this number. We got to do this. Like, why are you not picking up the phone? Email 500 today, that sort of thing." Very intense, right? And this guy was like very grateful and very like, "Hey, man, I have a question about this. Do you know about this?" And even when I didn't know the answer, I didn't feel uncomfortable telling him that I don't know. And I think that was, tying that to how we operate now. I think that's probably why I feel comfortable telling people when I don't know the answer to something now too, for the right people. But I digress. Um, he was telling me about his life one day, and you can see the numbers in the back end. Like, this company was doing millions upon millions of dollars. They're doing really well. And I asked him because he said, "Yeah, like this business started out as like a hobby for me and my family, and then it grew into something. I spend most of my time skiing and like hang out with friends. I love getting like a resort for all of us and just like doing these things." And I said, I have to ask because the perception is, to do that, you have to be the CEO of a massive corporation, or you have to hit these milestones. You have to like climb the corporate ladder. But then when you climb the corporate ladder, you have no time to do those things. So like, what is the number? Is what I said to him. And he's like, "What do you mean?" And I said, "What is the number to live the life that you're living? Because that's, what you have is something that I really want. I want more time with my family. I want these things. But my perception has always been, you become the CEO, you have a big exit, you do all these things, and then you chill." And he was like, "No, dude, I spend maybe $300,000 a year. Like, that's the amount that I spend, which is still a significant amount of money. Don't get me wrong. But the number that I had in my mind was like 5-10 million to live that way." And that single conversation really changed my perception on money itself, because I think we often overestimate how much money we need to be happy and how much money we need to do certain things. So from that day forward, I was like, what is a high value skill that I can acquire, that will allow me to live a lifestyle that I want? Because I want to travel, I want to spend time with my family, I want to be able to buy them vacations, that sort of thing. And I was like, you know what? Let's try for 300,000. Let's see if I can do it. Um, and he was right. I mean, the company's continuing to grow. I feel, um, like it's just way less than you think. So that was like a big shift for me. And then I'd say like the second thing is, I started to not really care about external validation or what people thought about me. And the second you truly shift, and there are times, like, don't get me wrong, no one is 100%, I don't care what anyone thinks. There are times, and there are certain people that will evoke that sort of feeling from you. The second you commit to doing things that make you happy and you look more inwards, um, is the day that you actually start living your life, I feel. Because a lot of what we do, if you ask yourself why enough times, it's because you feel like other people are watching you. You feel like other people have these expectations of you. You feel like people see things about you that, you obviously see about yourself every day. And to tie this to magic a little bit, that was a big lesson in my life, was that people are not watching you that closely because they're so concerned about what's going on in their own lives. So if you just focus on building the life that you want, then you'll be happy. And like going through the exercise of building 14 companies, nobody talks about the 13 companies that failed. They talk about this one because I just continued to put my head down and work, right? Not hustle culturally at all, but like in the sense of I wanted something to work, so I kept going. And the reality is, people like, maybe they give you crap for trying so many times, but the second you strike gold, they're all like, "Wow, like how did you know?" And you're like, "I didn't. I just kept going," right? So yeah, to summarize, going to internal validation, and then also having a conversation with someone that was living similarly to how I wanted to live, more time with family and friends, and just doing more of what I wanted, and just changing how I approached all of it.
Because I was wondering with that, um, when you set that, oh, let's say, because you were talking about 4 or 5 million down to 300,000,
Mm.
did something shift in you to go, oh, okay, and did that then change not how you show up, but I'm not quite sure how to phrase it, but it, we have this perception that in order to get 5 million, we've got to work 23 hours a day, and
Mm.
just do that. But when you lowered that money thing in your head, you go, well, I'm again, it's not a small amount of money. I appreciate that, but it seems different. You go, oh, and so I was wondering then, did you feel that you could have fun with it because it was almost a little bit playful, a bit more experimentation? You don't have to do this rigid thing, or are these things not connected?
Um, I mean, the biggest shift was, and I forgot to tie it to magic. So, I mean, just to
Yeah,
tie that loose end
yeah,
up,
yeah.
magic, very quickly, magic is one of the best exercises to show you that the human attention span is garbage. And we don't notice about 80% of what goes on right in front of us, right? So, I mean, just tying that back to what I said before, when you realize that people are not watching you as closely as as you think they are, you start to live a lot more freely because you realize I can do anything, right? And no one cares. But yeah, so shifting back to your question, um, I would say it became more of an experiment of, okay, well, I think a lot of people see business as, okay, I have to start small. And then when I've made a name for myself, I can then charge more, right? Or I can then start building the life that I want. So I'll spend 5 years doing this thing. And then once I have the experience, then I'll spend five more actually selling it big ticket. So I was like, let's do the opposite. I'm just gonna start big ticket, and then I'm gonna start solving like bigger problems. And this is from years and years and years of trying to start small ticket and trying to build it. And I'm like, we keep running out of cash. Why do we keep running out of cash? Because we're not charging enough money, right? So when the thing about most B2C is you're dealing directly with people who have smaller budgets because they're living their days life to life. They're living their lives day to day, and they have to budget for a ton of things, and you are an added cost to that. So when I first started, um, it was about 5 months in where I decided, okay, well, let me try and go big ticket. But when I first started, I was like, I'll go to companies and people and charge them like $500 to $1,000 for, like a video setup. We'll do all these things, and I was like, as much value as I can give. Like, we'll work 9 to 9 every day. We'll come in, we'll shoot your video for you. We'll do this. We'll edit it, everything from A to Z. People were not happy because they wanted more, and they also felt like they were spending too much money with you, and you're like, that is 1/6 of my rent. Like, I can't even afford to live on what I'm charging you for this. So what is the problem? And the way it was explained to me is you're taking a large percentage of their money. So why would you not go after people, either people with more money, like solve rich people problems? I don't like that it's worded that way, but that's what sticks. Or go after companies, right? If you go after a company that has raised $50 million, right, and you charge them $100,000 for an engagement for 3 months, that is like less than 1% of their money, right? So why don't you go after the big ticket people? It takes longer to close them, but I think the question that I saw someone answer, I can't remember what it was. It was just like, hey, if you needed to make $100,000 in a year, how would you do it? And the person was like, I would charge one client $100,000 and then live out the rest of the year. And I was like, whoa, that's, I've never even thought of it that way. So that was like the catalyst for, okay, maybe I should go after these bigger companies 5 months in, like I said, because I was pulling my hair out trying to serve smaller people, smaller companies. And the thing is, you're taking such a small percentage of their money that to them, relative cost to like another person, it'd be like them spending $1 on your services, right? So like if I charge 100,000 here and it's like less than 1% of their money, and it works, they got great value out of it, and I made enough money to live out the year. So that was the shift for me. I don't know if all of
Yeah,
my
no,
answers are long-winded, but your questions are just fantastic. Thank you.
no, because it's quite relevant because, like I've said to you before, I'm trying to look at ways of I'm self-funding this, but I love the way that you think about that. But something pops up in my mind is that you think, oh, if I'm going to charge something like 100,000,
Mm.
like, uh, how could I possibly deliver on 100,000? Like, what value is that? And that can be quite scary when you're quite starting out. So I was wondering, and I think I already know this answer, but so I won't put the answer out there, but I would imagine you, but no, hang on. What
Mm.
did you do differently between those people other than going to companies? The
Mm.
service that you were offering, was it different or something? Did you add like a lot extra on to be able to go and service these clients with this money?
No, you can do less, honestly. The thing is, um, if you're a specialist, if you are quite confident that you can do something, and the company spends $100,000 with you and makes 150, that's a win, right? A lot of people look at it as, okay, well, how, like, if I'm charging hourly, that's usually the way they come at it. Then I need to spend, 400 hours a week. There's not 400 hours in a week, right? So how do I do it? How do I give them $100,000 worth of value? And typically the answer is, just be really good at one thing. You can have, there are people that will come in these days, like what's his name, Russell Brunson, the ClickFunnels
Oh,
guy.
yeah, yeah.
He's become so good at funnels, and like people will probably argue, but he's a big name and this and that. Before he was massive, he was charging 25K for a day of his time because the information he would give companies was so valuable that they would make, 8, 10, 20 times what they spent with him, because it was leveling them up, right? So if you have something where you're like, I know this better than this company does or than the general public would, and they stand to gain a multiplier of what I charge them, then I have no problem, charging them that kind of money, because if we come in and we charge 100,000 and they make 500,000, we're both happy. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's the way that I look at it.
Yeah, it's a strange because I'm thinking about this idea of playing it small. That's often how we are. We think about things and we have to build up. And it's interesting the way that you thought about it. And I love the fact that you've also explained that it was 5 months in and you
Mm.
basically didn't start out that way. And like you said about these 13 businesses, because the narrative out there is always, okay, yeah, you hit a home run and everything was perfect.
Mm.
And but most of the time, there's a lot of, and I don't like the word failures. That's not really something that sits very well because I think we live in this pass fail world. And I don't think it's like these experiments that didn't work out. And you learn so much from those things. And at the time, they can be painful and frustrating. And, you put all your hopes and dreams into something, it doesn't work out.
Mm.
But that's not happened to me in the amount of businesses that you created. But when I started doing these lives, I started going, oh, but I remember that from that course when I was trying to build that thing. And then there's all these little pockets of information. I was like, oh. And then the strange thing is that I have a lot of conversations with people and they're like, oh, how do you know that? And I was like, yeah, but I did this. So you collect all this information along the way,
Mm.
and in isolation, they don't feel very relevant.
Yeah.
But at some point, you can almost bring them together and you go, yeah, right now this makes sense. And I don't know why I'm thinking about the Power Rangers. The Power Rangers.
Yeah.
I don't know why that came into my
Perfect
head.
visual.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. And because sometimes because things are in different, so you would think the corporate setting was not this, but you can bring all of this information together.
Mm.
And sometimes we isolate those separately, but it's a good way maybe for anyone out there who's doing these things, who are doubting themselves, maybe you have all those things, you've just not connected quite the dots yet, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. More often you have that information than not. And I find, a lot of the time our expectation is if we do the small engagements, the small things, and we work our way up to the bigger engagements, then we'll have the knowledge that we need to solve those things. And I'm not saying that like, big, let's say in this case, big corporations experience vastly different problems than smaller corporations or people. There are slight differences, but the reality is until you've been in that situation, you don't really know how to solve these problems. So you may spend 5 years doing the small thing and you're like, I'm going to work my way up. And then you get to the big thing and you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing, because it's just a different playground, right? So I mean, my view on it is, if you're nervous about going the bigger route and charging more money, um, when you do deals, we'll just use the $100,000 again because it's a nice round number. When you make that kind of money, you can afford to bring people in who have a bit more experience than you. So if you are dealing with an enterprise business and you're like, okay, I just got paid 100 grand, be willing to part with half of it, because it's a significant sum of money. You're going to be fine if you have $50,000 that's paid up front to you, and be willing to part with half or more to learn from that experience and refine your processes and be better the next time. And the more you do that, the more contacts you'll get, the more people you'll be able to bring in to solve that problem with you. But I think the most stress comes in when you try and solve these problems by yourself, when you have the money to bring in other people. And I will say, like, after that 5 months, the first couple of months that I started hiring people, I wasn't making much money. My margins were small because, I was like, I'm affording myself more time to go out and look for clients if the work is done on our behalf. So my first hire was very, very important because, historically, like when I was by myself, I was doing the scripting, the strategy, the going to on site and being on, like, recording people and then bringing it all home and editing it. And then I said, you know what? Let's cut out the production part so we don't be behind the camera anymore. And then let's just do the thinking part that I can do in my house. I told you I spend like 9 hours a day in my house working because I like it. And then I just wanted to make sure that that's clear. And then the actual editing part, our hire can do that. So if I'm only focused on the brain part, which takes, a few days, I can then afford myself time to look for more clients, and that pool of money will grow. And then as that money grows, I can continue to hire people that will do the execution work that's super important, and I can continue to do the brain work that I really like. So I say all this because so many people are hesitant to bring in people because they don't want to share their pie. And I'm like,
Mhm.
share it early, and that will afford you more money and time later. But we're obsessed with short-term gains and what is the term for it? The, like, quick dopamine hits sort of thing.
Yeah.
But you need to charge a lot of money. You need to share the pie, and you need to think long term about your business. That is the way that you continue to thrive.
Wow. There's so much wisdom in you. I'm just like,
Thank you.
that's quite something. No, but the way that you think about things and like the strategy, I don't know. There's this thing that I get from you, and it's just this very considered. Again, it's like this. You're going the opposite direction. This sharing this money, because I think when it comes to money, we're very much like, oh, that's all mine. I deserve that. That was, but the way that you've thought about that is just like, yeah. Even when you said, oh, 50,000 is a lot of money that you've still got. You go, yeah, that's great. And then the part of my brain goes, yeah, but you've lost 50,000. It's strange how these little tricks sort of play. But you haven't lost it. You're investing it, right? You're putting it
Mm,
back into being able to do that. And
yeah.
so we're gonna. Like, I'm conscious of the time we've got. We kind of can go to about an hour 10 because I really
Oh
enjoy
yeah.
it. But
So yeah.
no, 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 no. It's cool. But and we can always do a round two, absolutely. But
Mm,
I'm just wondering, so for the audience, what happened is we had our conversation before this live a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about video, and I was explaining that I was doing long form and how it was, and it was quite a selfish conversation because it was kind of validating the way that I was doing things. I was like, yeah, this is really great. Then we ended, and you said, yeah, just before you go, and you did a magic trick, a card magic trick on me,
mm,
and I was like, what? Right, that's what we've got to do. And we haven't talked about magic that much. I know you've referenced it before,
yeah.
but first of all, are you ever going to share with me how you did that magic trick, or is that just that's not part of it?
Here, if
I,
I get this
I,
wrong,
yeah,
then I'll
yeah,
share
go
with
on.
you. Yeah.
Which we both know it's not going to happen.
Do you want to name a card?
Oh God.
Let's see. Do I have them all in here? They're good. Cool.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
What card are you thinking?
Three of diamonds.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay, let's try this out. Ugh. open the box here. And if we take a look through, do you see how there's one card face down? Oh, do you see that over
Yeah.
there? If you take a look, it is in fact the 3 of diamonds. So I guess the answer is no, I can't tell you.
Do you know what? I changed my mind 3 times with that. That's nuts. So, okay.
No, I'm kidding. You know what? I feel like it's only fair to tell you in our next conversation.
Yeah, perfect.
I got you.
But because we didn't really talk about it, and I know that's sort of what I prefaced this conversation about, but that's such a skill. And I was wondering where, you've already referenced it partly because it's such a clever way to think about it. We think people are paying attention to us and then actually not.
Yeah.
But you got into magic quite young, from what I remember you telling me, and
Right.
so, but then you've used it in business. I wondered, obviously this isn't a transaction. You just showed up for me, and I'm grateful for that. But how has that won you business before? Is it just like you thought the deal was going bad, or it was just the icing on the cake? How does it show up for you?
No, for me, I've just noticed that I like creating memories for people. So I've been doing magic for about it'll be 23 years now. So since I was 10, and it's just the stories that would come back after I had done a trick for someone. They would come back like 5 years later. They'd be like, "Oh, you're the magician guy. You did this." And the interesting thing is, the stories that they would tell me, I'm like, I did not do that. Right? They'd be like, I would show them that sort of trick, and then 5 years later they come back and they'd be like, "Dude, you did that trick where I set a card and then a bird came from the sky and it delivered me a card and it was the 3 of diamonds." And I'm like, "Yeah, I remember that. That was a great trick." And they're like, "Can you do it right now?" And I'm like, "No, sorry, I don't have my bird with me." Right? Right. But I love it because it brought me out of my shell. And it's really fun for me to, during like a business conversation, because we get caught up in the monotony of like, okay, well, have you tried video before, and like, have you done this? So I'll start with a trick and people relax because they're just like, I've never seen something like that before. And also you're actually a real human being, and I think it's important to establish that. We forget when there's screens between us. So it's really important to me to do something that breaks the ice that way. And I've just found the conversations go a lot better. There have been a couple occasions where I didn't start with it, and then the conversation was like not going too well, and I did that at the end. And they were like, "Wow, that was awesome." And then the deal didn't close anyway. So I was like, there's no saving that, but whatever. But it opens people up. And I know we don't have a lot of time left, but one thing that I wanted to make sure that I chatted with you about today is on the front of people not noticing things. So I'm going to spoil a trick right now, but there is a trick that you can look up online where someone will take a napkin, they'll stuff it into their hand like this, and they open their hands and the napkin is gone. And that uses something called a thumb tip. And people don't know what this is. They don't know it exists. They don't see it at all. And the thumb tip is like a fake thumb that goes over your thumb. And you take the thumb off, you put it in your hand, and then you stuff the tissue in, then you put it back on like this, and then you open your hands and it's inside, right? Like it's a shell on your thumb. The day that I realized that people don't notice anything is they don't make black thumbs. They don't. They don't make black thumbs. And I got away with it for 10 years. People are like, "Whoa, where did it go?" And I'm like literally showing them like this, and there is a white thumb on my hand. And I was like, wow, it is incredible to me that I can have this thing right in front of you and you don't see it. And that informs the way that I approach video content, because the things that we fixate on and we go, "Oh, that needs to change," or "That's not the right color," or this and that, I'm like, nobody sees it. Nobody sees it. So it taught me a lot about just misdirection, also storytelling, which I might have to get into in another live because we're running out of time. But that was the biggest thing in video and in life. There are a lot of things that people don't see, and there are a lot of different ways that people will see and retell stories. So please keep that in mind when you are navigating the world, because it's better to just do yourself, be yourself,
Wow. I was going to continue on a little bit, but I don't think I can actually top that. That story alone is just absolutely astounding, right? yeah, that blows me away that no one could see that.
Nobody.
No one ever went, no.
Not once. Not once. 100% success rate.
That's crazy. And because I was thinking about the editing side as you just said that, because something why I like these lives is because they get streamed and I don't have to go into the editing side. And I think self-editing is very, very difficult, and I fall into this perfectionist side of things. And whereas these lives are just sharp as me. If again, I'm human, and if I mess up, something happens, the doorbell rings. I've had someone was on and their cat just walked past the screen. But I think people are very tolerant of those things. They don't really mind. It doesn't really affect anything. And it shows that you're human, and that's super important. And we forget that in this box that we're trying to be kind of, well, we think that we're being professional. And what I've taken from our conversation is that you are so professional. Like there's so much to you in the way that you show up, the way that you've created your company, the way that you hire people, the way that you think about business in such an honest, truthful way, and saying, yeah, okay, I can't maybe do what you're asking, go over here, or it's not the right time. That is such an amazing skill to have. And that's it. You should be really proud of that, because I haven't seen that. And we, sometimes we go, oh, professional is not having fun, but you've had fun, you've engaged. I am more convinced that you're more professional than a ton of people that I've known in the corporate world. And
Thanks.
like, I would hire you in an instant over those people because of all the things underneath of that. So yeah, that's what I'm taking from it.
I really appreciate that, man. Thank you. I would have a conversation with you every day of the week. So please invite me back. I know you've booked up for a while now, but whenever there's a spot, I would love to have this conversation, even offline. Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll definitely do a round two, and we can do the storytelling thing, because I think not only will I enjoy it, I think there's so much wisdom in you that you could give other people. And I think, yeah, I'm just wondering, maybe you should do your own thing. I know you built your lifestyle anyway, but I think there's so much wisdom to you, and I think you could be a great mentor to many people as well. So
thank you.
That's
I
just
appreciate that.
For you.
I feel the same way about you. I want to make sure I say that on record.
Thank you very much. Thank you. But for today, thank you. So I found you on LinkedIn. Where should people come and find you? LinkedIn or website? Where's the best place?
LinkedIn or www.a2media.ca. If you want to work with us. I don't like promoting myself, but I'll do it now because I have a forum. But yeah, LinkedIn is like the only platform that I use regularly. So you can find me here. Yeah.
Fantastic. So I repost this, and I'll put all the links in the repost so people can find you easier. But yeah,
awesome.
For today, it was a real pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure was all mine, man. Thank you so much for today.
All right, man. Take care.
All right,
bye.
See you.